topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, Houston. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show, where for the last 16 years, we have brought you the top experts in the field of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. I got to tell you, when you do about 30 shows a month, sometimes they all just kind of bleed into each other. But I got to tell you, the show we have for you this morning, they have literally been with us for about 15 years now. And I was thinking about why I'm still so excited to do this show. And at first I thought because Barry Fowler is probably one of the funniest guys I've ever met, and he brings that humor into the show. But what I finally discovered is your letters. I mean, people who tell us they've never even written in before, they're writing for the first time with their questions. I have never had to plan for this show just due to all your letters. I just wanted to take time during the beginning of the show to thank people for all your letters. And I read every single one of them, and we really appreciate them. This guest just makes this show so easy to do. Barry Fowler, who's the president and founder, write this name down. You never know. Taxation Solutions, Inc. He's an enrolled agent, and we're going to explain what that means today because I got some of your letters asking that. He's licensed to represent taxpayers before the Internal Revenue Service. Can you imagine going up every day against the big giant, the IRS? So his experience in tax and finance industry, over 40 years. Now, I know when you see him, you're going to go, there's no way, because he looks so young, but Barry's expertise includes tax resolution, and not just tax resolution, tax planning, tax returns, preparation. He's been instrumental in helping thousands of people. And we are so lucky to have Barry, and he's got his own show, which we'll be talking about. Welcome, Barry Fowler.
Hey, good morning, Steve-O. Good morning, everyone. Hey, I was laughing and listening to that introduction because you said, hey, we never planned for a show. I think one time did we ever plan, and it was more of ask me what you want.
Yeah.
We'll answer it, and I remember the very first show we did, and, in studio, we were actually videoing it and everything else. And you're like, do you have a list of questions? No, here's what we do. Just ask me. Let's go. And we did a lot of different programs around the country with different hosts for Ask the Experts. And we were always live on radio, and they were always asking, what do we need to ask you? How can we prepare? I just need questions. I want questions from the listeners, from you. We want to help people get the information they need to either fix their tax problem themselves, verify that whoever they're going with, if it's not Taxation Solutions, because I know our company, we're going to do what we say we're going to do. But if you choose to go somewhere else, verify that they're going to do the right thing. And man, if you're armed with information it really helps you make that decision that, hey, are these guys the right fit? Are they doing the right thing? Compare them to what we would do here at Taxation Solutions to solve your tax problem to what they're even offering when you're on the phone. Don't fall for the pipe dream, as we always say. But I love doing the show because, hey, you just ask questions and we answer them for the listeners. And, anything they want to know about taxes, tax solutions, what kind of plans you can get with the IRS. That's what we're here to do is we're here to help.
Hey, Barry, we could never do Stump the Barry Fowler because, in all these years, no one has ever asked a question that you could not answer, that you had to say, well, let me get back with you on that one. Never, ever.
And what's funny is we did that program not too long ago is, hey, try to stump me, ask your questions. Yes. We were getting rapid fire questions in and, we were just going through and answering them. And that's where 40 years of expertise comes in, is knowledge of the tax law inside and out, not just, this year, but past years. IRS can go back as many years as you haven't filed, but typically they're only asking for the last 6 or 7. But if, we need to go back further than that to correct something, that's where knowledge is king. And that's where knowledge comes into to help get the right solution.
Barry, I know you're busy working, especially this time of year. You're working on taxes right now. The deadline is coming up the next couple of days. But I got to tell you, because I get the letters, there are so many people, Barry, out there that have been ripped off by these big companies that make a lot of false promises. And when it's time to deliver, because a lot of people say, I can't get them to return my phone calls. And it's funny because every time I bring that up to you, Barry, you always tell me that people get tired of your phone calls.
They do. I mean, we keep people up to date. You got to watch out regardless of what you're doing. There are a lot of unscrupulous companies out there, whether they're resolution companies, tax preparers, you name it. I mean, even we just finished dealing with somebody. We're building a cabin for offices, remote offices near our house. And we had an electrician come out, and supposedly he's a journeyman and he was licensed and everything else. We find out as we're going, he kept trying to bill us for more things. Oh, we need to do this. And then he's finishing and goes, oh, we need a ground wire. I know that. Why wasn't it grounded? And wants to add more money. And then you find out that he's not actually licensed.
Oh,
so you got to go watch. I mean, it's not just in, electricians or plumbers or anything like that. It's in this industry as well. There are a lot of unscrupulous people that want to take advantage, promise you the moon, the stars, and you fall for it. And then you're left with dealing with the problem. They're not going to deal with the problem. So you kind of got to make sure that, hey, if they're an enrolled agent, that they're licensed. If they're a CPA, they're licensed. Whatever they're representing to you, verify. Ronald Reagan said it best. When he was dealing with the Russians, it was trust but verify.
Yes.
Well, same thing you should be doing here when you're dealing with anybody. Trust but verify. We failed to verify the electrician. We should have. We didn't. So, it's one of those things that you go through and do, and you learn the hard way. And, it's the same thing. You start moving out there and you're using a resolution company. Sometimes they're just marketing firms.
Yeah.
And they're just, getting you to sign up because they're going to sell you whatever you want and whatever you think is the best thing because it sounds great. Sometimes it isn't what it all is. Ask who their enrolled agent is. Ask if they're licensed. Who's going to represent you? Ask those questions. And a lot of times when you call here and talk to my staff, you're talking to one of my admins. And sometimes you're talking to me or you're talking to one of my other enrolled agents. or you're talking to a consultant who knows what we do and how we do it and where we're planning on going. So don't fall for the pipe dream before you call us. We offer a free consultation. Call us, let's talk about it. You want to go somewhere else? Hey, great. We're not going to stop you, but we're going to give you reality. And some people don't like reality. They like the pipe dream. But it starts with a phone call to us at 877-996-6477. Again, 877-996-6477. Free call, free consultation. Hey, we're in the middle of doing a bunch of taxes and trying to get them done for the 15. We're still going to take your call and still going to help you.
Barry, it's so hard not to brag on your company, but customer service means a lot to me, being a business owner. And I got to tell you, you do so many things. Like, you do this show twice a month with us. You have your own show every week. You do speeches for the truckers out there. You're always putting together like your playbook that you do, information that's affordable to truckers. You do so many extra things that just, to me, I'm just so amazed and so glad that we have you, Barry.
Well, I'll credit my father. He always taught us service. Be of service, and you'll be rewarded greatly. And we have been, rewarded greatly by the business that we keep and we do, by being of service to our clients. When I go and speak at one of the largest trucking associations, I don't do it for a fee. I do it for free. And I get to go up there and spend 3-4 nights with, people that are in the trucking industry talking about trucking. And, it's amazing. I'm there to teach them about taxes, bookkeeping, how to keep themselves out of trouble with the IRS, making estimated tax payments and all that. But they also get to tell me about things that are happening in the trucking industry. So it's a win-win. So I get to know a lot more about what they're doing and what they're experiencing, whether they were a W-2 driver or now they're owner operator. And it gives everybody that kind of knowledge. So it's sharing and it's being of service, out there. And when we're going out and talking about tax resolution, whether it's in my program, taxtalk4u.com. By the way, every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, little plug for us out there. Tune in. But, we get to talk about everything tax related and answer your questions. I was laughing with myself the other day because I was sitting there going, I had nothing planned. Please ask me questions. And we get a bunch of questions coming in. I was like, God answered it, because I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I just said, hey, we're going to talk about taxes. Great. Send me your questions. So when you're doing your own show, sometimes you got to be a little more prepared than this one, because this one I can rely on you to bring listener questions in. So, we have a lot of fun.
Barry, a lot of letters that we get in, they all start off the same. I am so embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to go talk to somebody about this problem. I'm embarrassed that I put myself in this position. And I always think about, Barry came up with the no judgment zone. And you don't think about that, but when you get all these letters in that start off, I'm so embarrassed. So instead of doing something about it, they just kind of think it might go away. They don't want to talk to someone because they're embarrassed. And they really don't understand, Barry, that you truly do have the no judgment zone.
Yeah, we see a lot of people that just go and stick their head in the sand and think that it'll all go away. In the end, you just get kicked in the rear end while your head's in the sand, over and over by the IRS. So it's really not doing you any good. You can't be embarrassed when you come to us. We're not passing judgment on you. We're actually empathetic, sympathetic about what your situation is. We're looking for the easiest, the best, the correct solution to your problem. I mean, hey, sometimes you go through an audit and people think, oh my God, it's all my fault. I've done this or done that. And sometimes it's the preparer that did stupid things that they shouldn't have done. Sometimes it's just the luck of the draw. You got called in for an audit and they're looking at things because maybe some things don't make sense in, God forbid, the IRS's, great logarithms out there that say, hey, we should audit this one because of this. That's not you. That's the IRS. That's their computer systems. Hey, don't worry about it. We're going to try to figure out what's the best way out of it. If you got all the information, there's nothing to worry about. If you're missing information, but it's still correct, we can get through that. If you made up all the numbers or the preparer did, man, all we can do is try to get you the best solution and get you out of it as quick as possible. And it's the same with tax debt. There's millions of Americans. You're not the only one,
right,
that owes the IRS money. There's millions of you out there. There's millions of people that get IRS letters all the time. It's the ones that actually pick up the phone and call us and get a solution in place that can actually get back to living their life without looking over their shoulder, watching their bank account, or, hey, worse yet, having to deal with your wife because you're not manning up and dealing with the problem. I couldn't even imagine what my wife would be saying if, we owed money on taxes. I would probably never hear the end of it. Of course, I should be dealing with it because I'm an enrolled agent. I shouldn't be in that situation. But, I'm thinking about it as as one of my clients. What would my spouse think if we had that much tax debt? We got to get you relief. We got to get your life back in order. We got to get your family back happy, relaxed, understanding that we've got it under control with you. And we can get a grasp on this situation and get you the relief that you need so the family can be a family, not worrying about the IRS.
Barry, we get probably at least one letter a month from a wife to
Uh-oh. I think we got stuck here.
do anything about it. What can I say to him to scare him into calling you?
The funny part is I would just walk over to him and tell him, man up, be a man and deal with this thing right now before I do. And if I do, then I'm blaming you the whole way. Even if it isn't his fault. Maybe he would get up and do it. Sometimes that I could see that working. Other times I could see him probably getting mad and going, go do it yourself then. And then if he tells you that, it's really simple. You pick up the phone and dial the 877-996-6477, and you've got us on your side going after the solution, and you did something your husband wasn't willing to do. So, hey, sometimes that's what it takes.
We assume that everybody knows what an enrolled agent is, what you do to negotiate with the IRS. Tell people about Taxation Solutions, what you do. I mean, we just take it sometimes for granted that people understand what you do, but there's a lot of people out there who don't know exactly what you do.
Well, we do a lot of things, Steve-O. An enrolled agent, we're licensed by the U.S. Department of Treasury to represent taxpayers to the highest levels of the IRS. The only place we don't go is in the tax court. That takes a lawyer that's admitted into tax court to be able to do that. But what we do is we work with our clients to absolutely fight against the IRS. Now, solutions that we work with to get our client back in compliance, back to living their life, can be everything from, payment plans to partial pay installment agreements to non-collectible status, or what everybody else hears on the radio is this great thing of offer and compromise that, let's say not everybody qualifies for. Even though on radio it sounds like everybody does. You get one, you
Right.
get one. It's kind of like when you're listening to the radio, it's like watching Oprah when she used to give everything away. You get one, you get one, you get one. No,
Yes.
you got to actually qualify for this. It's not just given out, and it takes time and a lot of work and a lot of effort to be able to get to getting that offer. Doesn't mean that we can't help you fix your situation to where maybe you can qualify, because we work through all the different programs and we have a lot of tools in our arsenal to be able to represent you and get you maybe that offer and compromise or the best deal that's out there. It may be also penalty abatements. And then we also work with you on your tax returns. We may be fixing tax returns that take care of the problem because somebody did them wrong. We do current year tax returns. We'll do back year tax returns. We'll work with you for into the future. As long as you want us to be doing your taxes, we'll continue to do them. And once you do have a solution in place, we offer services like transcript monitoring, to where we're keeping close attention to the deal that we got with the IRS so that you stay in compliance with that deal, and that the IRS isn't coming back and all of a sudden doing collections for no reason at all because you've been in compliance. And if you happen to step out of line, we know how to work with you to get you back in to compliance so you don't lose the deal that you're on. Somebody once asked, how do you lose a deal if you got an offer and compromise? And it's really simple. Owe them money at the end of any one year during the next 5 years after your offer is accepted. Not make estimated tax payments when they're required. Not filing a tax return during those 5 years after your offer is accepted. Adding more debt. All those things are simple ways of falling out of compliance. And when that happens, all the debt comes rushing back. So you need to kind of keep an eye on what you're doing as well, going out to the future.
Can you be late, Barry?
No. If you got an offer and compromise, you can't be late in filing. You can file an extension, but you got to make sure all your tax debt that you would have for that year is paid in by April 15th. Oh, speaking of that, man, we're right here before filing deadline, aren't we?
Yeah.
If you're filing an extension for your taxes, make sure you get it in. I've also heard rumors about the post office not staying late to postmark things like they used to.
Yeah,
So
I remember that.
things in early before your post office closes. Get in there and get it postmarked. Make sure they're postmarking it, properly if you're going tomorrow on the 15th. But those extensions are only an extension of time to file, not an extension of time to pay. So if you're going to owe more than $900, you need to make sure you make a payment into the IRS as well, so you're not getting hit with penalties on money that you would owe when you do file your return, back later on in October, because you get 6 months extension out there.
With all the questions that we get, rarely do we get one we've never gotten. This is one, I don't think we've gotten one like this. This is from Montrose. And they want to know, I'm new to owing taxes. What is better, to hire a firm like yours or a CPA? And can you explain why?
Well, first off, a firm like mine, I know my firm and I know Taxation Solutions. We're going to stand behind what we do and what we say. Enrolled agents probably, in my opinion, know a heck of a lot more than CPAs out there as far as tax goes and even solutions go. Not to say there's anything wrong with CPAs, When I graduated college, I was a CPA. I'm still considered a CPA. I just don't renew my license because I renew my license as an enrolled agent for the knowledge of doing taxes. I don't do, major audits like SEC audits and stuff like that. I'm not out in the public accounting world. We do, bookkeeping for our clients. We do taxes, which is primary what we do. And that's the knowledge that we have is all centered around the taxes and the tax code. How can we get you the best deal legally? How can we get the best refund or lower the amount of taxes that you owe by getting those returns in and filed, doing it timely, doing it correctly, and making sure that you're dotting the I's and crossing the T's and you're not missing anything. We see a lot of people that miss stuff that they should have been able to deduct that they haven't. And that's kind of how we got into the trucking industry and became the industry experts at trucking, bookkeeping, and taxes. Is people don't have the knowledge of what owner operators and over the road truckers do, like we do. And so we're very strong in working with people on their taxes and getting the best solution. And hey, I spend part of my day every day on the phone with the IRS fighting for, the best solution for our clients, fighting for penalty abatements, fighting to get things corrected within the IRS so that, you have the best representation you could possibly have.
Hey, Barry, this next question is kind of dear to my heart. This is from Cindy in Sharpstown, and I went to elementary school in Sharpstown, so it was so strange seeing Sharpstown. But she wants to know, and I think this is one of the greatest things that you do, why is representing yourself can make things worse?
Well, Cindy from Sharpstown, Sharpstown's changed a lot. I mean, when we first came out to Texas, the Sharpstown Mall was down there, and I think they've move that into, more of offices and stuff out there. It's been a while since I've been out in that area. So why is it a bad thing to represent yourself? Well, the first thing is you really don't know what the rules and regulations are within the IRS. The second thing is that IRS agent does not work for you, the taxpayer. They work for our government. And so who are they going to represent and help more, you or the government? They're going to tell you things like, hey, we can get you a fresh start. Yeah, man, I even hear it on the radio programs. And that fresh start to me means fresh money to the government. They're going to offer you the one thing that they know they can give you, a full payment plan. They're going to ask you questions to find out every single thing about you. Not that, we can't and don't have to relay all the information to the IRS about your situation and where you bank and home equity and everything else you own. It's doing it properly in the proper order and making sure that you're going to get the best solution for you, not the best solution for our government. We always saw those signs, way back, and you look at the old signs for war. Uncle Sam, wants you. Yes. And actually, all Uncle Sam wants now is your money, because be honest, our government's dead broke and deep in debt. And so, how are they going to do it? They got to collect money, and who are they going to collect from? You and I and everybody else. But if you haven't paid your taxes and owe it, they are definitely coming after your money to get payment as quick as possible. And then if you're delayed, non-compliance, and not working with them, the next thing you know, they levied your bank account. And you made it easy because you gave them all that information up front instead of working the deal and using what tools we have to get the best deal possible. Now, that's not saying, hey, the only thing you qualify for may be the full pay installment agreement. Maybe that's what you do qualify for. But while we're there, we're going to work on getting penalty abatements. We may work on doing things that help you reduce what that payment is, at least up front, and maybe a little bit more later. Or maybe we're able to rearrange things in your life that allows you to qualify for a partial pay installment agreement. Or, as they talk about the whole Holy Grail in those advertisements, that offer and compromise, if we can change things to make things better for you. And that's what we get to do. We get to use everything in our arsenal to fight for you. You think President Trump pulled out everything in his arsenal fighting Iran right now? He surely is, had fired a lot of missiles and everything else, but he's still got tools in his toolbox that he can still use. And, hey, we don't use everything on that first shot. We're going to use every tool that we need to get the best solution we can possibly get.
Yeah, Barry, I don't think people actually realize all the things you do have in the tool chest. I think they think that, if you can't get the IRS off their back one way, that they're sunk. You have so many different ways that you can work their situation out with the IRS.
Oh, absolutely. The first thing you've got to start with is complete honesty from our clients. You can't hide things. You can't hide property. You can't hide money. You can't hide accounts, because you start doing that and it puts us in a bad situation, and it puts you in a worse situation. But yeah, we have all the different tools in the arsenal. We actually were representing a client here recently who owed close to $1 million in payroll taxes. And, this revenue officer that we ended up having to deal with was doing trust fund penalties. And before he could actually levy trust fund penalties, we actually got some of the taxes reduced, fixed some of their payroll forms, and then they paid off the rest. And then all of a sudden I got a really mad revenue officer because he couldn't accomplish what he thought he was going to be out there to accomplish. And then he wanted to go and do a site visit. And I was going to fly there, and got caught at the airport at TSA and their lines. And then the airport wasn't releasing planes, so they kept delaying and then canceled. Called him to cancel that site visit, and he decided to go anyway. Wow. So we called his manager and took care of that problem as well. And now all of a sudden, hey, he's bending over backwards to get things done and work the way we want it to work, because he fell outside of the rules, So, knowing the rules, knowing the law, knowing what we can accomplish and the way we can accomplish it works magic for us. And, that's the way we try to keep moving down this road, using everything in that toolbox when we need to. And the best thing in that toolbox that we have is the knowledge to accomplish it the right way, within the laws, within the rules, within the manuals, within the code, everything that we need to be able to get there. We don't use everything all the time, but sometimes that knowledge is much more than what the IRS agents are going to have. Sometimes they have no clue what they're going to face or what they're going to come up against, much less some of them don't even know what the IRS manual looks like.
Barry, you've told me so many times, though, how people who start off talking to the IRS themselves really dug themselves a deeper hole that you had to get them out of.
Oh, yeah. I had a client who, we'll say he misspoke. And the IRS was asking him some questions, and all of a sudden he just started spouting and giving things out. And he thought it was okay. The IRS looked at him and went, well, then you got the money to pay us, and we're levying your bank accounts. And they went after every one of his accounts.
Oh, God.
And, he called us up. Basically, him and his wife were in tears. What do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And I'm like, hey, we got to work within the rules to try to get some of the money back so you can at least make your mortgage payment and your car payments and stuff like that. And then the last part came out was they took all my kids' money too.
Wow.
And I said, well, okay, what kids' money? Well, the kids had college funds set up by their grandmother. And they had enough in those funds to basically pay for their full college education for 4 years. And the IRS took it all. 3 kids, all their money went to the IRS to pay mom and dad's tax debt. So we had to get working with the IRS to prove that this kid's money came from the grandmother and it was just there for the kids. And, you gave away too much information, and then you didn't follow through with all the steps that you needed to do, and they went to levying. You missed the deadlines. So, sometimes that representation, sometimes that talking costs you a lot. He gave every indication that he could actually full pay the whole debt, even though he didn't have that money in his accounts in any way, shape, or form, nor was he supposed to be touching that money. It just so happens his Social Security number was tied to it because it was his kids. So, you kind of got to watch what you do.
Yeah, no mercy.
And there is no mercy. Right now we've been guaranteed by the revenue officer that they're going to get all the kids' money back because of the information we were able to obtain from the grandmother and proof of the payments going in and everything else. So, we're lucky enough to be able to do it, but that's just things that do happen. When you start dealing with the IRS and then you think, well, deadlines are no big deal. I've missed them before. It isn't going to matter. Sometimes it really hurts you. And it was information he gave away freely.
Wow.
Where we could fix that, prior to it.
My next question was from Sid in Sugar Land. You just basically answered it. Can the IRS come out to my place of business and question me?
Oh, yeah.
You just answered it.
They're supposed to notify you. They're going to send you letters and they're going to tell you that, hey, we're going to do a site visit. They'll even send the letter, the date and the time that they're going to be out there. A lot of times we can actually intercept that and keep them from doing those site visits. But it really depends on the situation. In our case with the client that owed over $1 million in payroll taxes, there was no keeping him from doing a site visit, but we could control the site visit. Not what he could see, but who he talks to and who he doesn't talk to. And, that's kind of the benefit of representation. You're not there standing there talking to the revenue officer that's coming out and doing the site visit. It's not a confrontational type thing when you have an intermediary between you and them. So remember, once you become a client and you sign the power of attorney and you make your payments, we step right into your boots. We are now the go-between between you and the IRS. You don't deal with them. We do. You don't talk to them. We do. If there's a site visit and we can be out there, we're going to guide it. If we can't be there, we'll get somebody there, or we'll work with you to have somebody else besides you guide them through. Because there's a lot of times that, hey, they will not make the arrangements when we need the arrangements made, but we know what's going to happen so we can guide this thing through as smooth as possible. But you got to watch it. It's not answering questions. It's just walking them through and letting them see what they want to see and then getting them out. We went through an audit with a company a few years ago, and they wanted to come out and do a site visit. Well, they were actually coming out to do a on-site IRS audit. Can you imagine that, being a business owner and you've got to deal with revenue officers and IRS agents for auditing you, sitting in your place of business, auditing your books. And, they wanted to be there to do it. So we sat there with them every day that they were there. We kept them out of places they shouldn't have been, that they didn't need to go. And we also discovered their old CPA was mad that these people came to us and gave the IRS information to audit them and where to look and under what carpets and rugs and where the dirty laundry would be. And so the IRS came out there to fight it. Unfortunately for the IRS, I had more knowledge about their business and what they were doing than their CPA did. And we were able to actually beat 99% of the audit. We only lost because the CPA did not tell our clients that cash payments or bonuses to their employees should have run through payroll. And they didn't run some of these employees' bonuses through payroll, but 1099 them. So they got in trouble for that. That was the only thing. But what they came out there for was almost $1 million adjustment because of what that CPA told them. And we were able to show them that CPA was wrong, and here's why. That's kind of the benefit of knowledge again. That's what we're really talking about, is we're sharing knowledge. We're helping you help yourself in business, help yourself against the IRS, help fight the IRS when you're getting representation or even representing yourself. Watch what you say, how you say it, and whatever you do, don't get mad. Just relax, talk to them. It does not need to be confrontational. Don't get upset, listen. And then if you don't like the way it's going, get representation as well. Then we start trying to bail you out of the deep water that you got yourself into, or the deep water that the IRS is putting you in.
Randy, in League City, I was told I owe the IRS $2,500. I paid it rather than fight with them, but I know I was right. Does it make sense to have a company like yours fight to get my money back, or is it going to cost me more than I feel like I'm owed?
Well, it depends on what the problem is. I mean, if it's as simple as amended return, it's a reasonable cost. If you're trying to stand on principle, sometimes principle costs a lot of money. And it's not necessarily worth going through and doing. We've had a few clients that have called us and said, hey, we want to fight the IRS all the way to tax court, tooth and nail, over a sum of money that isn't worth fighting for. And we told them, hey, it's going to cost you X number of dollars, which was a lot more than what he was saying that they took from him, and a lot more than was there. But if you want to stand on principle, sometimes means you're fighting the IRS to prove they're wrong for the fun of it, I guess you would say. So sometimes principle isn't worth it. But, sometimes we just sit down and we look at it, we do a tax analysis, and we say, hey, look, this is what it would take. It's just as simple as a amended return. Let's amend your return, do things right, and submit it, and wait for them to process it, and then you will get your money back. And that's reasonable costs. Okay. But if it's going out there and fighting them, having to go to tax court, last time I had a tax attorney working that was going to tax court, it was close to $5,000 to $7,000 to go to court. Do you want to spend $5,000 or $7,000 to go to court to get $2,500 back? No, not me. I wouldn't do it. So sometimes it's cheaper to take your losses than to go after something that you may not win.
Barry, these online tax companies, we're starting to get letters now that people use them. They made a mistake. And one of the things they talk about is, if we make a mistake, we'll represent you. And people are having the hardest time getting them to fulfill that promise. Does that surprise you?
No, not at all. It doesn't surprise me at all, because realistically, you did your return, you made the mistake, and they're going to look at it and go, well, it was just your mistake, pay it. Or you left this off, pay it. It's, we had a guy call the other day that was doing his return on, one of the tax companies online. And he's like, well, it's coming back and saying I owe, $20,000. Can you look at it? Can you do this and stuff? We're like, no, we can do your return for you, but we don't log into X Tax to look at what you're doing. Why don't you call them? Well, I can't get them on the line, but even though they told me they have live people that that are going to be standing by and reviewing this return for me. And I said, well, just got to try to get them and get them to do it, because they're the ones telling you this and you were going there. Well, why are you going to charge me to do this? It's not my software. It's not me doing it. It's, you want to pay for my time. You got to pay for my time. And we don't, use their software, and we don't log in, and we're not a representative of them. So get a hold of them. Now, you imagine if you're trying to do your return and you're trying to get somebody to help you and look over it, that they say they will and they won't. What are they going to do when it comes time, when there's a problem and you need representation? They're not going to be there. And if they are, they're not always here in the U.S. Sometimes they're using chartered accountants over where, in India or someplace else. So they're not always here in the U.S. either. So you just kind of got to watch what you do and, make sure who you're using and what kind of representation and what kind of tax service do you really want.
I know we sort of mentioned this before. Someone wrote in about, can the IRS contact third parties without your permission or letting you know what they're contacting them about?
IRS isn't supposed to do anything without letters. I mean, they're going to send you letters. They are going to contact you that way. They'll also send you a phone number if there's a revenue officer or somebody involved in it to call. Most of the letters that come out, unless it's a large dollar amount, are just going to collections. If somebody's calling you and telling you got tax debt, listen very carefully to what they say, because they don't always say Internal Revenue Service, and they're not going to give you their Internal Revenue Service number. They should not be calling you unless you've got that letter. But a lot of times I just tell people, if somebody's calling you, hang up and then call the IRS back. That's the simplest solution to dealing with the IRS and figuring out if who's really calling you and stuff. So, they got to preface everything with a letter, and you've got to open those letters. You got to read those letters, because just throwing them in that circular file over here does not make them go away.
Does the IRS email?
No, they actually don't. It's
going to be a letter, right?
It's going to be a letter. Okay. There's no emails coming out to you. It is a letter.
Phone calls.
Somebody's got to support the Postal Service, don't they?
Yeah. No, there's so many scams out there, Barry.
There is. And I mean, I've even gotten a phone call within the last month of somebody telling me I had tax debt. And, I decided I was going to play along. I know my situation, and he wouldn't tell me how much money I owed. And I said, well, I've gotten letters from the IRS, but, I didn't open those things. So, how much do I owe? Oh, you owe thousands. How many thousands? And you kind of play along with this thing only because I have the knowledge to do it. I don't recommend anybody else doing it. I recommend if somebody's calling you and pretending to be the IRS or collections, or somebody's calling from a resolution company, supposedly, hang up the phone. Even if you know you have tax debt, they're calling and soliciting from you. Call somebody call somebody you trust, call Taxation Solutions. If you want to know about us, you can go to taxationsolutions.net. Again, it's taxationsolutions.net. You can look us up on the BBB in here, Houston. A+ rating. And better than that, just give us a call. 877.
And your next show is when? This Monday.
Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. We're here, W4CY Radio, right after Ask the Experts at 9 a.m. Eastern time. So listen to Ask the Experts and then turn into us here at taxtalk4u.com. Again, it's tax talk, the number 4, letter U.com. Follow us over there and never miss an episode.
And we've got a national show coming up soon also, but folks, listen, if you have a friend, doesn't matter what part of the country they're in, have them give Barry a call if you want to really do them a big favor. Barry, as always, God, this is such an easy show to do. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Steve-O. Thank you, Ask the Experts. Man, everybody have a very God-blessed week. And don't forget to get those extensions or get your returns filed here for April 15th. Don't delay. Get them in as soon as possible.
Thank you, Barry Fowler. That's going to do it for us today. We'll be back in with you next week with more Ask the Experts.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Experts show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.